Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel where I talk about lifestyle, fashion, social commentary, personal, professional development, and really everything in between. But just to get right into it, throughout quarantine, I've been trying to find a lot of ways to kind of pass the time and, ways to be creative and innovative and really kind of discover more about myself and look at new communities. And TikTok has definitely been one of those avenues, and I know it's been the same for a lot of you. And on TikTok, I've been seeing a lot of content. There's been a lot of debates and scandals on TikTok. Honest, a lot of debates and scandals. From people being racist and saying the N-word, to people judging at people's past, to, people not necessarily knowing how to leverage the short form video that TikTok offers to adequately, give information on a particular topic. One of the biggest things that I've been seeing with the creators on TikTok is QueerBaiting. So many people have been kind of creating queer content kind of imitating and emulating queer styles of dress, queer aesthetics, and I think this has really been contributing to this trend of queerbaiting. And so I kind of really want to talk more about of what is queerbaiting. Is it kind of a swirling community, in greater society? Are these things that are being exhibited on apps like TikTok or in contemporary culture, pop culture, wherever, are they indicative of a larger problem? And kind of what does that say about society? What does that say about the queer community? What does that say about the straight community? And kind of what are ways that we kind of move past this and think about this in the future? To define queerbaiting, you're kind of seeing queer aesthetics being emulated and kind of queerness being hinted at, but no actual queer people are there. So they lack the queer representation. However, queer aesthetics are being emulated by certain people typically for kind of social and cultural capital for people to kind of continue to watch, because it's always more palatable to watch queerness on a non-queer person. Crazy. Crazy. Where else have we seen this before? Where else have we seen this before? I've been seeing some grown-ass people. Some of these people, these big creators, at first glance, I'm like, oh my God, are these kids like 12? Are they 13? No, some of these people are 19, 20, if not older, doing all kind of craziness on TikTok, but they've definitely been contributing to a lot of this kind of emulation of queer aesthetics. And a lot of people they've been garnering viewers, doing things like wearing nails, kind of wearing wigs and different styles of dress that are more feminine. But you're having trans people who are trans, part of the queer community, who are dying at unprecedented and disproportionate rate. That really points to a problem. Why is queerness so palatable, and why is it even hailed among members of non-queer communities, non-queer people who don't even identify, who've never done anything for the queer community, yet and still for queer people, crickets. I think 2019, 2020 was the rise of this term called like the e-boy, e-girl. And I'm like, no, those are just queer aesthetics that have now been appropriated and are emulated by, non-queer people, and now they're seen as something so revolutionary, something like a lot of people want to aspire to. And then also in popular culture, like Bad Bunny. Now, I was sleeping on Bad Bunny. I will give you that. I was sleeping on Bad Bunny, and I started to recognize, okay, Bad Bunny, there may be a little something. There may be a little something there. But, in his most recent song, Yo Perreo Sola, I'm sorry, I'm learning my Spanish, I'm on Rosetta Stone. I know I probably said that incorrectly, I know my tones were off. Check me. Come check me.
Come check me. When you see me, come check me. Come check me. Thank you.
In his recent song, he's, dressed up as a drag queen and wearing makeup. And his kind of whole persona has been about subverting, popular norms within pop culture, Latin pop culture, that are oftentimes very homophobic, very queerphobic, and he's definitely incorporated a lot of queer aesthetics and queer imagery in his artwork, in his music. Why do we love queerness on him and not queerness on a queer person, not queerness on someone who may not look like them? Queerness in a person who's not cisgender, who's not, identifiably, male, or doesn't, exude all of these very, masculine qualities or have a particular body type. Why is it palatable on him? And, questions about, would he be able to rise to fame at the same level or kind of garner the same level of attraction if he didn't emulate these queer aesthetics? Or y'all come and bash me. I think Bad Bunny is an amazing artist, and I think what he's doing to advocate for the queer community is definitely something, a part of the story that needs to be told. You know, he's doing things like, for example, he went on Jimmy Fallon and he was talking about this transgender woman named Alexa. She's a Puerto Rican transgender woman, and she was brutally murdered, and he commemorated her in his performance on Jimmy Fallon. He was wearing a shirt with her name on, he was wearing a skirt, and he's, done a variety of things over the past few months, the past couple of years, to really advocate for queer individuals. And so I definitely think he has not only, talked the talk, he's walked the walk. And he's one of the few people who I think has, been an advocate and is really trying to subvert the norms and being an ally in one of the best ways possible. But when we have trans people out there or drag queens or whomever within the queer community who may not be cisgender, this kind of like this beacon of masculinity, why do we kind of ridicule them? Oftentimes, we love to hail individuals who are white, who are Eurocentric, who are mixed, who are racially ambiguous. Emulate those Eurocentric physical features. The conversation is a little bit different. I was reading this article on them.com by this Naveen Kumar, and essentially he was talking about this work done by a public health director at Yale. His name is John Pachankis. Pachankis did a study on how the gay community's obsession with certain types of aesthetic kind of impact members of the community.
He said, the stressors we heard in interviews and then studied nationwide could be classified into 4 types. One was stress related to perceiving that the gay community is overly focused on sex at the expense of long-term relationships or friendships. The second was that the gay community is overly focused on status-related concerns, things like masculinity, attractiveness, and wealth. The third was related to perceptions that the gay community is overly competitive, that it upholds this kind of shade culture and general social competition. The fourth was that the gay community is exclusionary of diversity, including racial diversity and age diversity, and discriminatory towards gay men with HIV. He then went on to describe the groups that are disproportionately affected by these 4 stressors. Broadly speaking, men of color were more likely to perceive what we call gay community stress. Single men were more likely to perceive it, as well as men who describe themselves as more feminine, men with fewer socioeconomic resources, and men who didn't feel particularly attractive. We also found that younger men compared to older men were more stressed, and that bisexual men were less likely to experience this type of gay community stress.
I really want to indicate here with this phenomenon, we're having a hail queerness on non-queer people, but then we're also kind of seeing a greater issue as to kind of what queer aspects are being perpetuated. And that has not only to do with the straight community, but also a lot to do with the queer community. What are the things that we're pushing to the forefront? What are the things that we're finding palatable? What are the things that we decide as kind of preferences? And why do we like to see those things on people that are, heterosexual? People that act queer but aren't actually queer. Why do we have this obsession with this aspiration to heteronormativity? Heteronormativity, in contemporary society is hailed. We have all of these kind of aesthetics that are really hailed and pushed by the queer community, and as a result, that really cultivates what types of things are being used to queerbait. We need to unpack things for ourselves within our own community. Why are we thinking of some of these things as preferences? Are they really preferences? Or are you just racist? Are they really preferences? Or are you just ignorant? I think it points to a lot of structural inadequacies that we have both within the queer community as well as outside of that, and kind of what are the particular aesthetics that we are bolstering and buttressing within the community. If you disagree with me, if you have more discourse, more things that you want to talk about, or if you want me to talk about and expand upon more things in another video, definitely let me know. Comment down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned.